Salutations and welcome to the Cartridge Crypt, the Super Nintendo Sepulchre, the Mega Drive Mausoleum. Welcome to the Game Grave. You might be wondering, what am I doing here in these catacombs, surrounded by the freshly entombed dead? Was I captured by a cadre of creepy cadavers, grim ghastly ghouls, and spooky scary skeletons who are now forcing me to review video game after video game in some vain attempt at winning my freedom? No, because that'd be terribly contrived. I moved here because I thought it'd be cool to live in a graveyard. The Wi-Fi sucks, but I just run a Cat 6 cable from above ground to a gigabit LAN port on the back of my PC, and I get, pretty good speeds for streaming and gaming and, There are ghosts, though.
Friends, it's Halloween today, and many of you out there are looking for something spooky to play.
But if you're like me, you want to spend All Hallows Eve with some good friends and too much pizza. But what game do you play when you're all joshing and joking? I mean, you don't want people making fart noises during a particularly tense moment in Silent Hill 2. Well, we turn to the cornerstone of any party for people who aren't intelligent enough to discuss the work of Fyodor Dostoevsky: fighting games. Now, this is the Game Grave, so instead of making a video where I just remind everyone that Darkstalkers exist, we're going to talk about 5 forgotten fearsome fighting games. Except there's actually 6. I needed to lie because I wanted to have alliteration in the title. I thought that would get more eyes on this video. I mean, I guess I could have called it 6 Sinister Slappers?
Hey, Chris.
Hey, everyone! It's the Game Ghoul! What's up, Game Ghoul?
Don't you think it's irresponsible to be having the Halloween parties during a global pandemic?
Yeah, but I want this video to have like a timeless quality to it, and I feel like if I keep referencing current events, it's just gonna date it for future rewatches.
I don't know about that. I think you're gonna be lucky if people just watch it the one time.
Yeah, you're probably right. Fine. Here's 5
6.
frightfully forgettable games with fighting that you can play with an emulator, parsec, and a Discord lobby with your friends for an online remote Halloween party.
Hey, Chris. Isn't it illegal to pirate video games online?
Killing Zone.
Now you're going to notice that I'm going to talk about the roster for these games and the levels and themes more than I talk about mechanics or gameplay. And simply put, it's because we're not looking to get married here. We're looking to hook up with one of these games during a wild Halloween party.
These are forgotten games, alright? They're not impressive enough on a technical level to replace games like Tekken or Street Fighter, or the sequel to Data East's Fighter's History, Karnov's Revenge. Aside from being unpopular, one of the main criteria for a game making this list is that it has to feature several monsters or slashers or creepy things fighting each other. I know most fighting games have their token Blanca character, but we want a monster majority. Karnov also doesn't count because he isn't a monster, he's just a fat, ugly man.
Now, as I mentioned before, we're playing these games using an emulator, but don't worry, I own a physical copy of every game on this list, so it's perfectly legal for me to make digital backups of them. I'd show you these games in their boxes, but my camera's broken.
let's take a moment to look at Killing Zone's story via a sample from the game's manual.
It was neither in the past, nor is it now.
Okay, thank you for letting me know this game that features fighting monsters is fictional. You had me scared for a moment.
The event takes place in a special dimension between the darkness and the light, in the dark, grisly, gruesome setting. The world is ruled by the power of darkness. The human race, powerless in the face of darkness, is constantly dragged into battles between the warring evil factions.
Hey, I thought you said this game didn't take place in the present.
The power of darkness summons the world's species together and announces that a tournament, a death battle, will soon be held. He proclaims that the victorious species will be awarded rule over the world of light for 1,000 years, and instructs each species to select a single representative to compete exclusively on that species' behalf.
So each character in this game is supposed to be a representative for their species. Keep that in mind as I run down the roster.
We have a werewolf. Okay, I know he looks like a normal dude right now, but just like in Stephen King's classic Silver Bullet, to transmogrify into his more lupine form, he must enter a sequence of button inputs. A dark fairy. Emphasis on the word dark because she's not to be confused with those pussy fairies that make Rice Krispies. The Minotaur. Okay, I'm pretty sure there should only be one of this dude, but I guess Queen Pasiphae of Crete wasn't the only person who enjoyed getting raw dogged while inside of a wooden bull. The Giant is Frankenstein's monster. Like even the manual says, a young scientist, singular, created him from decaying humanoid flesh. How much free time did this young scientist have to create a race of these dudes? I would say during your lifetime, you can make 8 to 10 really good monsters tops. 15 if they're each a little fucked up looking. A Gorgon, whose species must find it hard to procreate considering they would turn each other to stone when they looked at each other. Probably like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, they have a no kissing rule. And a mummy. You know, from the entire race, no species of mummies. That means there are millions of these guys out there. Millions of people who were so venerated in life that they were mummified in death. Then they all got together and started their own mummy society with a mummy system of government, mummy currency, and mummy pop culture. And then they developed mummy kung fu. There's also a skeleton in this game, which is important because if there isn't a skeleton in your game, it doesn't make this list. And the publishers of Killing Zone were adamant about being included in this video that was made 25 years after their game hit store shelves.
I guess I should have mentioned this video is sponsored content. Or at least it will be when the check clears, Acclaim.
Chris, I have terrible news.
What's wrong, Game Ghoul?
Your show's not funny.
I know, Game Ghoul. I know.
Now this game is very bare bones, especially when it comes to story. The writing from the manual I just read, yeah, the people who wrote that probably made it up on the spot because this game gives you nothing. In fact, it gives you worse than nothing. It gives you Quake nothing. You can beat the game with any character and all you'll get is congratulations. And the manual also has this fun line.
Much to everyone's surprise, included among the 7 finalists is a representative from the human race, a race ordinarily viewed as weak and inconsequential.
Yeah, much to our surprise too, because he isn't here. I think the writers just looked at a screenshot of this dude and assumed he didn't turn into a large furry. Or maybe they thought she was normal despite having antenna. Also, why did they draw a butt crack on her character model? Seriously, guys, instead of writing a single ending to any of these characters, you decide to invest your time into letting us know this fairy packs cake? Nice priorities, guys. So I guess in the end, we have no clue what the hell is going on here. But on the plus side, the game answers the age-old question of who would win in a mythical, titanic fight between a minotaur and a skeleton. Now this game does do something cool, though sadly half-baked. There's a mode called Auto Mode, and due to the terrible name, you'd be forgiven if you thought it was just a way of watching CPU matches. Instead, in this mode, you actually pick a stock fighter with default stats and run them through a series of tournaments. Except you don't actually play as the character. Instead, you give them suggestions during the fight like a corner man, and based on their performance, their stats will change, they'll learn new commands, or even change in appearance. This would be a cool mode, except the roster is so thin that you end up seeing the same fight over and over again. A tournament will usually boil down between a heated fight between Skeleton A and Skeleton B. I live in a graveyard. I have really easy access to skeletons. A mode where you train your fighter while watching CPU fights is a great concept that would absolutely work in a game with a much deeper roster. So I guess in short, that means Super Smash Bros. Ripped off Killing Zone. Nintendo ripped off Killing Zone. Wait a minute, Sony ripped off Killing Zone.
Wait a minute. This video has a skeleton in it. That means I ripped off Killing Zone. So why is this game forgotten? This thing screams budget title. And the auto mode, while a cool idea, it feels like an unfinished prototype in this game. And when you waste hour after hour in that mode and you finally beat it, you still don't get an ending. All the game can say to you is,
Congratulations.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Iron and Blood, Warriors of Ravenloft.
So let's talk about Iron and Blood, Warriors of Ravenloft. Not to be confused with Otto von Bismarck's 1862 speech, Blood and Iron, Warriors of Ravenloft. Now this game is based off of Dungeons and Dragons, and I know what you're thinking.
I am the real Dungeon Master.
If you're the real Dungeon Master, then I'm a blue-nosed baboon.
A blue-nosed baboon? What a strange choice.
And you're right. Dungeons and Dragons typically isn't considered horror, even though it's filled with monsters. However, look at this title screen.
That's Dracula. Sure, they're gonna call him Strahd in this game, but that's Dracula. So like, automatic 5 points to the Honto meter already. The Ravenloft setting for D&D is normally reserved for campaigns that have a, shall we say, Castlevania-style flair to them, which is apropos since Castlevania 2 actually stole its box art from TSR. Oh, I bet you thought you were real fucking slick, Konami. Kyle Reese, what the hell are you doing here? And don't you think this guy has more than a passing resemblance to Kiefer Sutherland?
Oh, and don't worry, that's the last time we're going to talk about Castlevania in this video about fighting games.
The cast is somewhat fitting given the subject matter. It's split down the middle with heroes and villains, and the villains tend to stick within the realm of fantasy horror. We have a skeleton, a demonic knight, a werewolf, a gargoyle, a gimp, another gimp. Do we still consider goblins scary? Guess not. But sadly, where this game falls apart is in the hero department. We're given a selection of boring and typical heroes.
The kind you find pewter figurines of in the early 90s when you were playing a campaign where everyone had to be lawful good, before we realized that lawful good players are secretly fascist, unlike lawful evil players who are openly fascist.
We have a knight, a wizard, an archer elf, another knight with her ass hanging out, which isn't tactically sound for a game that predominantly focuses on melee weapons, and a dwarf named... what was his name again?
Torgo.
One more time?
Torgo.
Could swear I've heard that name before. And the most annoying hero...
Bilbo Baggins, he's only 3 feet tall.
I hate this little man. I hate his Mo Howard haircut, I hate his Lakers jersey, and I hate his smug little face that lets you know he thinks he's better than you. I want to normal this guy in a box and send him off to Minas Morgul so he can get his ass whipped. This guy alone almost knocks 10 whole points off the Honto meter and makes this game only slightly more fitting to talk about than Clay Fighter.
Wait a minute. Clay Fighter had Ichabod Clay in it. Is it too late to refilm this entire segment except we talk about Clay Fighter?
Yeah.
Damn.
This game also has 4 bosses that you fight during the arcade mode, including the most terrifying creature in the monster manual, a scarecrow. Yeah, that's right, folks. One of the 4 pillars of Shadowloo in this universe is Wurzel Gummidge.
To give our Wurzel a bit of a mushy, right here.
Then we have medieval Balrog hitting people with metal boxing gloves. I like to imagine he just forgot his weapon at home and told everyone his character class was a monk when he's obviously a paladin. The second to last boss of this game is this awesome looking demon that's on the cover. So awesome, he makes you feel this could have been a Diablo fighting game. Until you see that he fights you while wearing a corrugated metal diaper and CM Punk's kick pads. And he also forgot his weapon at home. And finally you go one-on-one with Strahd himself. And I'm not gonna knock him for not having a weapon, because this dude fights like how a vampire should. He floats, he casts magic spells, and then he does a flying double stomp while you're on the ground that takes half your health. I think Bram Stoker left out the part in Dracula where Vlad Tepes basically had Kenta's moveset.
Oh, and there's one monster I forgot. The camera.
You can do a Dark Souls-style commando roll at the press of a button, but the camera doesn't change perspective quick enough to keep both the fighters on a 2D plane like in most fighting games. So you get this problem where your character will have his back to the camera, taking up a large amount of screen real estate, and completely obscuring some of the smaller characters. And there's something off about these animations as well. Everyone kind of flails around like they're being attacked by bees, like they're a 45-year-old tax attorney who's in a slap fight while wearing homemade pots and pan armor and swinging around a stick duct taped with towels that they call Excalibur.
Fun fact, I found out the mocap for this game was performed by the Society for Creative Anachronism. So I stand by my previous comments.
But all in all, this is a fun little game that also features a cool team battle mode. One player picks the light side, the other the dark, and then you pick between 3 and 6 characters each. Each round you pick a fighter to play, and the defeated fighter is eliminated while the living fighter remains playable, but with only some of their health remaining. However, if you bench that character for the next fight, they will regain some of their health. No real ending for each character, but you do get a dark side ending where all the heroes fucking die, and then you get a light side ending that for some reason kinda makes you feel bad for Strahd. He just seems so vulnerable and he reluctantly accepts his defeat at the hands of the heroes. I almost expect a sepia-toned flashback that explains he wasn't really that bad of a guy. Oh, and now he's on fire, and now he's dead. So why is Iron and Wine, That's So Raven, a forgotten game?
Being part of a brand isn't as big of a boon as some would think. There's a ton of Star Wars, Star Trek, Tech Wars, Tech Trek, Tech Deck, Wars, and Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch games that we just don't think or talk about anymore.
In fact, in many cases, being associated with a brand can actually be detrimental to a game, since it means you lack the creative freedom to make any necessary design decisions that would be counter to the established mythology or tone of the series your game resides in. They couldn't give the werewolf a gun.
Bronze and Bile, Punchers of Falcon Town was a Dungeons & Dragons fighting game, and that was it. There was no real gimmick outside of the setting, and it wasn't technically competent enough to be impressive. It wasn't even technically competent enough to match up against games like Toe Ball or Air Guys, God Bless the Ring.
Oh, I forgot, this game does have one thing that's special. The gargoyle rap.
I'll bring you down, the game you fight is mine. My power drains you, weakens you in time. Fire rushes through my toughened skin. Then I strike you, bring you down again.
Remember Castlevania? Oh, and don't worry, that's the last time we're going to talk about Castlevania in this video about fighting games.
Castlevania is a series full of colorful characters, interesting stories, and boss battles that use folklore, literature, and even horror movies as a template to create memorable encounters. Castlevania has such a fun sense of style that it makes it the perfect franchise for the Halloween season.
Man, do I wish there was a Castlevania fighting game.
Castlevania Judgment.
Castlevania Judgment was a Wii exclusive 1v1 fighting game. That's right, a Wii exclusive, which means it was designed to be played with these. Which is pretty cool if you can actually whip people while you play.
Ow! Damn it, that's the one thing the Wii tells you not to do!
Now, even though Judgment is part of a popular franchise, I still consider it forgotten. It isn't well regarded by the series' fans, and that lack of love makes it more of a Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine than a Sonic 3. More of a Mario is missing when compared to what is obviously the most popular Mario game, Hotel Mario.
Dear pesky plumbers.
For me, Castlevania Judgment has one glaring problem. Remember when I said Castlevania had a fun sense of style? Well, stylistically, Judgment's problem is that it's an anime.
But Chris, I thought you loved anime.
Oh, I do. And I'm not opposed to mixing Castlevania with anime. I mean, just look at Rondo of Blood. On principle, there's nothing wrong with a Castlevania with a bit of an anime flair to it. The problem is, this ain't your granddaddy's anime. Because your granddaddy's anime would probably be Space Adventure Cobra, which fucking rips. This is your older brother's anime. Also, your granddad? Pretty cool guy. I should know, we went to high school together. That's right, I'm old as fuck, and I have a YouTube show where I talk about video games to a ghoul. Feel free to compare your life to mine if you ever want to feel better about yourself.
You would think that when you make a game whose selling point was a roster comprised of 2 decades worth of iconic characters, you would preserve the iconic characteristics of those characters. But instead, we take Simon Belmont and we turn him into a blitzball player. We ditch Death's familiar robes to expose the fact that he was secretly Voldo, fitting since Carmilla is basically Ivy. Alucard has some dignity, I guess, as does Trevor Belmont, and I only strongly dislike Dracula's Aeon Flux costume instead of outright hating it. But the worst, absolute worst character redesign is Grant Dynasty.
Do you remember Grant Dynasty from Castlevania 3, or even as a mini-boss from Symphony of the Night? Look at him from this manual from 1990. He's a scrappy little pirate boy. He probably quaffs gallons of ale, and when he gets upset, he says stuff like crikey or core blimey or Gordon Bennett, you really are a twonk, Rodney.
Was he ever Sex Mummy? Kingdom Hearts Sex Mummy? Kingdom Hearts Sex Mummy wearing Road Warrior Hawk's football pads? Game, I was upset when you made my main boy Death a Voldo, but you can't have 2 Voldos. What's with his neck? Seriously, gang, I do not like the fact that he looks like Tim Burton's big screen adaptation of Guilty Gear. The narrative thrust of this game is that a mysterious character named Aeon opened up a time rift that has caused all the heroes and villains of the past to come together and throw knives at each other. And it's actually just called the Time Rift.
Right on time. Welcome to the Time Rift.
The characters recruited by this foppish twink are as followed. We have Simon Belmont, who has a neck tattoo. Looks like he's less related to Trevor Belmont and more related to Trevor GTA 5. Trevor Belmont.
I see. If you know me, you must be my descendant.
What the fuck does that mean? Sypha, whose entire story and almost every line of dialogue is about how her fellow witches are being persecuted by the church, which makes it all the more frustrating when she is prejudiced towards and persecutes a werewolf who is a good guy, a vampire who is a good guy, and a golem who is a good guy. Ultimately, she's a hypocrite, and I think she's coded to be a white feminist, but maybe I'm reading too much into this.
Werewolf, prepare to be cleansed!
Hold! Do not be fooled by my appearance. I am your ally.
Am I to trust your kind? You would say anything to get close, then strike without warning.
You are mistaken. I would never do such a thing.
Foul creature of darkness, repent before my power.
Eric Lecard, who sucks.
Fight me as you would a grown man. I do not want your mercy.
ring out!
You know the drill, it's Alucard. Yes, I know, we all want to fuck him, but keep it in your pants, gang. This is a long video. Carmilla.
I taste the dark flavors of the night.
Something across before you.
The werewolf Cornell.
You will learn why they call me Blue Crescent Moon.
KO.
Why do they call you Blue Crescent Moon? I don't. Does anyone know why they call him Blue Crescent Moon? I still don't know.
The aforementioned twink Aeon. Dracula is actually playable in one of the rare instances outside of Boku Dracula-kun. Of course, we have the aforementioned Grant Dynasty.
That moss I see growing on you?
It is!
Shanoa, who honestly has one of the better redesigns, which is fitting since her game came out around the same time as this one, so they felt it wasn't necessary to turn her into a steampunk strumpet. Death.
Thousands of years ago.
And finally, Big Voldo. So we have 3 Voldos so far. Game, you're getting pretty close to becoming oops all Voldos. Now I don't know about you, but there's something about these character redesigns that just rubs me the wrong way. They look like something the dude who made Death Note would make. Wait a minute, that's because they are something the dude who made Death Note would make, because he did!
Now there's one character that I haven't talked about yet, and it's frankly because I find her design unsettling. It's Maria Renard, who is a child.
Maybe it's just my personal hangups, but there's something about a little girl in a short skirt with pink and white garter belts and go-go boots that just gives me the heebie-jeebies. And it doesn't help that her storyline contains one of the most annoying anime tropes of all time, titty envy.
They're huge.
Will you stop? These things only get in the way.
How can you say that? Those are a sacred gift!
I think the character designer needs to Hikaru no go to jail. That's a manga joke.
Even the vampires are bigger than mine!
You know, I'm starting to think everyone associated with this game needs to go to jail.
I am Eric Lacard. I can't believe it's really you. Ew, quit staring at me like that, creep.
And you can go to jail for kids.
I will give you the greatest of pleasures.
Holy shit, Carmilla, go to vampire jail now.
Hey, big man. Ever been in love?
Love? What love? Love tasty?
Love ain't a snack, genius. Here, why don't I show you? Come on.
Nothing wrong with that. They're 2 consenting adults.
Mama, me find you.
Oh wait, that dude's also a kid? Never mind, folks. Grant's going to jail. Honestly, I find the roster a tad disappointing. Much like Blood Omen, Fighters of Riverdale, there are too many boring human characters and not enough cool monsters. Castlevania has such a long history, there's a countless number of monsters you could have used instead. And now I'm gonna count them.
Number 1, the skeleton waiter. Number 2, a very sick dog. Number 3, Meathead. Number 4, Kurt Vonnegut Jr. Number 5, the skeleton farmer. Number 6, the dapper cricket. And finally, my favorite, number 937, the green skeleton from Symphony of the Night that shoots lasers at you.
And now for the embarrassing part of this video where I tell you this game is actually kind of fun.
I went in this game with a huge chip on my shoulders, but the more I played it, the more I liked it. It's pretty simple to play. Almost every attack is done with one button, with another button that modifies it. And then there's a button to use items you pick up during the match that can also be modified. As you must have noticed by now, characters don't move like a traditional fighting game. Normally, characters are on a 2D plane, or in the case of 3D games, you're locked onto your opponent and you can only orbit around them by sidestepping. But in this game, movement is unlocked, so you can run around picking up power-ups and spamming colorful projectiles, only getting close to lock your opponent into some crazy juggle combos. The characters all have flashy ultra moves they can perform that can be devastating if landed, but can easily miss considering you aren't locked on to the other fighter. My one gripe is that when these moves do land, they actually do too much damage, and the meter used to cast these devastating spells builds up fairly quickly during the match. Okay, so I have one other gripe. I don't know why people call this dude Blue Crescent Moon. I don't even know what that means. I didn't play the N64 games because they were so bad, Nintendo Power gave them 4.5 stars out of 5, their lowest review score ever. When you play the story mode for each character, you get this fun little interlude section where you fight off a horde of monsters, but it gets a little repetitive since you only fight zombies or mermen with a minotaur or a giant as the boss. The story mode also has a ton of fun character dialogue, and I found the Golem had the story I empathized with the most.
Curse good. Just wanted to learn curse.
Ahem. Butthole.
There's also a challenge mode where you fight your way through Dracula's castle, the name of which escapes me, and you unlock items that make your character look even more ridiculous. The levels all have the appropriate amount of Castlevania atmosphere, and yes, there's a clock tower level, and it's a Vania game so you know the music will whip. Even has a great cover of Barkerville. I would liken this experience to a Power Stone, which makes me lament the fact there isn't a sequel with 4-player matches, more levels, and the green skeleton from Symphony of the Night that shoots lasers at you. So why, with all these positive attributes, is this game forgotten?
It's because of this shit right here. Motherfucker looks like the worst cast member in Return to Oz. He looks like one of those bridge goths, except he has Mr. Glass syndrome and he broke all his bones while voguing. His character design looks like Butthole.
Thrill kill.
Now what if you have more than one friend that wants to play fighting games with you? Well, then I'd be jealous. I'd also suggest you look up this little game for the PS1 called Thrill Kill. Now before we start talking about this game, there's something about the mid to late 90s I think I need to explain to you.
Now horror has always been married to sex. From Dracula's seductive nature to Jason Voorhees killing anyone who's horny, Eros and Thanatos have always been mixed up. But in the 90s we started to see the grime rise to the surface. Maybe it was the seeds Clive Barker planted in the previous decade finally bearing fruit, but we started to see more sadomasochism show up in movies and in video games. This was also a time when the piss-yellow tinted films of David Fincher reignited America's love for serial killers. So it was only a matter of time for a video game company to have the bright idea of mixing fetishes with fatalities.
One game wanted to take this idea and run with it. Run with it all the way down to the condoms galore right next to the Hinky Tinky shop on the corner of Dingle Dale. And that game was Thrill Kill.
We have a dominatrix. We have a sexy contortionist. We have a sex dwarf on stilts. Kids, we have Pinhead at home. And of course, we have the mainstay of many a human bondage den, the large-shaved sex gorilla, which I assume is from the director's cut of 8mm. Other characters include a push-me-pull-you. Oh look, an actual monster, neat. A hillbilly cannibal. And the sad reminder that Danny Elfman's Bart Simpson disguise was not enough to trick the orderlies down at the asylum. Editor's note, this joke is way too abstruse and clunky, so we should probably just cut it from the video. And then there's Dr. Faustus. And I can't put my finger on it, but he looks familiar. All right, it's me.
Surprise, I've been Dr. Faustus this whole time. This is the twist ending to the episode that I'm sure everyone online will get and appreciate. Happy Halloween.
You can count on me. No matter what you do, you can count on me.
I might be looking way too much into things, but these levels look really reminiscent of other horror games from the 90s. This alleyway looks a lot like the basketball court in Resident Evil 2. The sewer level looks like it's ripped right from Silent Hill. And then we have the morgue from Theme Hospital. There's also a bathroom level. A filth-covered bathroom. You fight in a filth-covered bathroom.
And let me tell you something, last time I was in a public bathroom with a bunch of half-naked men, me and Brian Eno wrote Here Come the Warm Jets. And that's the most abstruse joke of the show.
The game has this weird mechanic where it's not about how much damage you take, but rather how much damage you deal out. As the evil Beatles would say, it's not about the hate you take, it's about the hate you make. Every character seems to be working towards filling a meter, and once it's full, you can perform an instant kill fatality on one of the other players. When this happens, the next round starts, minus the player that died in the previous round. Now, it is possible for you to actually dodge out of the way of your would-be murderer's move, and if you're able to play keep away long enough for your assailant's bar to deplete, the player lost their chance to kill you and the round just continues. This leads to a game of tag at the end of every round, each player trying to avoid the killer or sometimes even maneuvering around each other to create human shields. All in all, this game is quick and enjoyable. The roster is small considering you normally have 4 players on the screen, but they all have multiple costumes to make it visually diverse. The dominatrix can become a sexy nurse, a French maid, or even a member of Josie and the Pussycats, which I'm sure we can all admit is really kinky considering Hanna-Barbera porn is the primary fetish for most Americans.
So why was Thrill Kill forgotten? Well, the people that made the game forgot to release it.
That's right, I'm waiting this far in the segment to let you know that Thrill Kill was never released. It was almost lost media. Don't let anyone ever tell you that piracy isn't an important part of media preservation, because if it wasn't for leaks and bootlegs, none of us would have a chance to play this game.
Now, if you want to know the ins and outs of why this game never hit store shelves, I would suggest checking out Matt McMuscle's channel, where he does a comprehensive breakdown as part of his What Happened series.
Long story short, the last-minute cancellation of Thrill Kill came down to the studio changing corporate masters and EA deciding that they didn't want to release Porno Combat. Or Porno Combat. Porno Cumballs? Strap-on Street Fighter. But I would be remiss in my duty if I failed to mention that the developers of Thrill Kill used it as a template to create a Wu-Tang Clan fighting game. But that's a story for a different video. A video where I talk about all the games to feature members of the Wu-Tang Clan, including Def Jam Vendetta and Chrono Trigger. Also, quick note, I'm aware this game features a ton of offensive stuff, a dated portrayal of mental health problems, every woman character being overly sexualized, mocking little people, and Pinhead's ass. But gang, the people made a game so edgy no one would release it. Hopefully they learned their lesson. I'm the official hint keeper, here with a Halloween hint. If you bite into a piece of candy and find a razor blade, don't worry. You just won a free trip to the razor blade factory. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure laceration.
Mizuki Shigeru no Yokai Botoden.
Now, every game we've talked about has been heavily influenced by Western mythology. Even the game full of anime pretty boys was inspired by Bram Stoker, despite looking like a hentai you would buy from Suncoast Videos in 1997. Mom and Dad, this is your last warning. Please unsubscribe from my channel.
So let's turn our ghoulish gaze to Nippon, and if we want to know more about their phantasmal forces, we should consult the man who literally wrote the book on yokai, Shigeru Mizuki. Now, I'm sure you're all aware of the 1960s manga and animated series Gegege no Kitaro, which is like the Dr. Pepper to the Dr. Thunder that is Akuma-kun. It's been rebooted more times than Reboot has been rebooted, which is astonishingly only once. Okay, I didn't know this until I was editing this bit, but apparently Shigeru Mizuki also made Akuma-kun. He's the father of both. Well, I mean, I suppose Dr. Thunder is just what happens when Dr. Pepper goes skunky, so they rebottle it at a discount. So, you know, I honestly, I think my simile still stands, so I don't think I have to cut this entire part out of the video.
Actually, if you ask me, Dr. Thunder is more similar to Mr. Pibb than it is Dr. Pepper. You see, Dr. Pepper's secret ingredient is prunes, whereas Mr. Pibb is a spicy cherry soda. Therefore, I believe that Mr. Pibb, and by extension, Dr. Thunder, are more delicious than Dr. Pepper.
How come you know so much about soda, Game Ghoul?
I'm also a soda ghoul. You know, outside of video games, I have several interests.
Really?
No, not really. It's just the two. Go back to playing your game, Game Boy.
Shigeru Mizuki wasn't just some sweaty nerd that drew cartoons for a living. He was also a venerated and renowned sweaty nerd that knew a bunch about Japanese folklore and cryptozoology. He took his knowledge of yokai, a catch-all term for supernatural creatures in Japan such as ghosts and/or goblins, and applied it to a fighting game for the PlayStation.
Now here's a shocker. I don't know Japanese. In fact, I barely know English, so I can't really translate the text of this game faithfully. I'm just gonna refer to the monsters on what they are in Japanese mythology, even if they have proper names like Yukiko or Jeff.
We have the Oni, the stock demon of Japanese mythology. People who were bastards in life become demons in death, and they peel off the skin of sinners or grind their bones to dust. But don't worry, according to mythology, superstitious peasants can ward them off by throwing beans at them.
Now, one of my favorite stories about an Oni is this Oni captures this woman and her mom, and he forces them to live on an island with him, and they cook and clean for him. But one night they decide to escape, so they get on a raft, and then as they're paddling to the shore, the Oni catches them, and he starts drinking the lake, and he's drinking at such volumes that it pulls the raft closer to him. So the old woman lifts her skirt and shows the monster her pussy, and he laughs so hard that he shoots the water out of his nose, and it pushes them to safety. They should make a video game about that.
We have the Tengu, horrible bird people that hate humans so much they force them to eat shit. No, I don't mean they trip them or knock them off their motorcycles. I mean they literally force feed them literal feces. There's no graphic to accompany this statement because, ironically, it would be too graphic. Here's the Kamaitachi, the Japanese sickle weasel. They ride around on dust devils and cut up unsuspecting school children. They're the folklore reason why you have paper cuts you don't remember getting. They have what cryptozoologists call big meowth energy.
Not to be confused with big mouth energy, which is when Netflix makes a show where kids talk about sucking dick.
The Kappa, the poster boy for Japanese mythology. But what a Kappa exactly is debated by scholars, mangakas, weeaboos, momus, and the people who made OKKO for Cartoon Network. To some, they are mischievous tricksters. To others, they are friendly spirits who help you fish. And then there are the people who depict them as literal serial rapists who tear children limb from limb or suck a person's soul out of their anus. As you've probably guessed by now, Japanese mythology can get pretty buck.
Now this dude's more Kermit the Frog than Richard Ramirez, so I'm gonna trust him. For now.
And look at this little bean-headed man. Put some clothes on, kid. Okay, actually he's a Konoki Jiji. They pretend to be abandoned babies on the side of the road, and when unsuspecting Good Samaritans pick them up, they increase their body weight exponentially and crush the Good Samaritan to death. So if you see a baby lying in the road in Japan, just walk away. The Tsunakake Baba is an old, haggard woman who will walk the trails of Japan and throw sand in the face of passerbys. So to be considered a malevolent spirit in Japan, you just have to be ugly, old, and kind of a jerk. The Yuki Onna are ice maidens who harness the power of the frozen elements. One fable about them is about a man who unwittingly married a Yuki Onna. He asked her to join him in a bath, but she adamantly refused. But after much pleading and begging, she finally relented and melted away. Pro tip, even if you don't believe in ghosts, never marry someone who refuses to bathe. And finally, we have my favorite character, Judo Cyclops. game's single-player mode also features 2 boss characters.
Carmilla, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in jail!
Oh, and Death is here as well? And he's wearing his OG costume, kicking it like it's 1986 all over again, looking fresh to death? You know, we can get some other Castlevania characters to show up, right? Like, maybe we can get Dracula or Alucard or Blue Crescent Moon. Oh, no? We just have Beanhead? Was he a Castlevania boss? No, I guess not. He's just a Beanhead.
Now you may want to call me an ugly American, but methinks this also a budget title B.
The game has a limited roster, bland backgrounds, and only 2 modes, that being arcade and versus. And each character's ending is just their model with some white text over it. I wish I knew what it said, but again, I don't know Japanese, sadly. This could be as well written as Kagamusha, but without subtitles, I'll never know.
Tengu had defeated his greatest enemy. He had won the battle. But later, it dawned on him that the old man's words were true. He had defeated himself. His life goal was to become the strongest, but with that goal achieved, he had become an enemy to his own posterity. The grand story of his life had come to an end without climax. The epilogue of his remaining days would be devoid of meaning, purposeless. To die in battle, an end befitting a warrior's tale, was what he had secretly wished for. But his own strength made that impossible. He disappeared into the mountains, never to be seen again. Beanhead was fired from his job at the candy factory when he took his penis out during his shift.
So it's just your standard 2D fighting game with 3D graphics. Nothing too crazy except the roster, but still a nice little oddity that oozes charm.
Who knew that a well-respected mangaka would also be great at video game character design? I'll tell you who: Akira Toriyama, Kosuke Fujishima, Haruhiko Mikimoto, Shoji Kawamori, and... No, not you. I'm still mad at you.
Battle monsters.
Now I have a simple philosophy when it comes to horror. You can be sincere or you can be schlock, and both are equally valid. I love genuine masterpieces like The Shining, The Wicker Man, or The Omen, but I also really like Friday the 13th Part 6.
Fighting games by their very nature, though, can't even attempt to be sincerely scary. You're controlling the monster. The monster is highly visible, evenly lit, and in the foreground, and the monster's going to get the shit kicked out of it again and again. So fighting games should probably embrace the goofier side of horror, and the games on this list have done so with varying degrees of success, intentional or not.
But I want a game that is brave enough to go full schlock. I want bad costumes. I want cheap sets. I want full-blown ridiculousness. I want the puppet master of pummeling. I want the ghoulies of grapplers. I want the things of fighters. I want battle monsters.
By the way, I said Things, as in Things, the 1989 no-budget Canadian film. I'm not implying that John Carpenter's masterpiece was schlock, so please delete that hateful comment you just left. Or not. You know, enragement equals engagement these days, so I might actually get more views if you're mad about this. Battle Monsters was a Sega Saturn game developed by Naxat Soft, the same people who brought us Killing Zone earlier in the episode, and in my opinion is a much stronger showing when it comes to monster melee. And as we've done with the other games, let's have a look at the roster, arguably the most important part of any fighting game. Apologies to the diehard fans of 1984's Karate Champ. And oh boy, what a roster we have. We have a Skeleton Warrior. We got a Harryhausen.
Twins.
A creepy Birdman. We have the most modest ghost of all time, learning how to pull a pant leg over his ghostly tail. That or he died in a sleeping bag. Ghoul Dan. Shao Kahn. Medusa's back in the mix. And even Michael Myers showed up. Or it might just be Frankenstein's monster again, I don't know, the digitization isn't that great. We have a ninja. Just a ninja. That's scary. Oh no, it's Jason Voorhees! Oh wait, It's just Michael Myers in disguise. You almost scared me for a second, Mike. We have Anime Lady. Okay, look, I know she looks like a normal woman in a ballerina costume, but the game claims she's a living doll. But, you know, when I hear the terms living doll and monster together, I expect it to look more like Chucky and less like Thunderbolt Fantasy. And then we have Headless Harn, who on top of being a monster, is also a liar. Because you have a head, dude. Right there.
Just because your head's not attached to your body doesn't mean you don't have one. I have a couch, but when I'm not sitting on it, people don't call me Couchless Chris. They normally call me Juicy Fruit. My social life and what I do outside of this show is none of your fucking business.
The digitization of the actors makes it cheesy as hell too, a quality that the polygons of Killing Zone couldn't convey. Everyone here is a Spirit Halloween reject, and that's pretty swell. You'll also notice some of the characters have this weird blue halo around their edges. This is caused by bad blue screen keying during the filming process. They could have easily recolored these pixels, but they didn't, and I have to respect their dedication to laziness. Now, the balance of this game isn't perfect. Some of the characters could easily be the second to last boss in another fighting game. Dreth Doc has the strength of Goro and the ability to regenerate his health. Scythe can fly at a whim and summon lightning from the sky. And La Pa has doll powers. The levels in which these monsters do battle are interesting as well. They include Blight Town, the Kingdom of Zeal, 12,000 BC, Heaven, and my favorite, Really Big Hands. Some levels even have interactive stage hazards. There's a giant Raiders of the Lost Ark style boulder you can drop on people. And in this level, oh my god, that man-eating plant just bit his head off! Oh wait, you know what? That's Headless Harn. He's always like that. My bad. Sorry. So you're probably wondering by now, why are these monsters battling? Well, to find out, we're going to
check out the enclosed instruction book.
It is not now. It is not here. This story is set in the...
Acclaim, you dumb bastards. This is the exact same story from Killing Zone. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the dude who is the one human who entered the monster tournament. You're so fucking stupid. I'm glad you're dead. If you're able to defeat the other combatants, your entire school gets to have a pizza party where you must defeat the 4 elemental gods. This includes the god of fire, the god of water, the god of wind, and one of those living statues who hangs out at Central Park. Okay, so they're basically the 4 elements, which is fitting because if you haven't guessed by now, this game has a mystical theme to it. But given the wildness of the rest of the roster, I was hoping for something crazy for the final boss, like a claymation dinosaur, creepy triplets, the Jersey Devil, or Bret the Hitman Hart. The endings for each character are exceptionally cheesy, with some really fun art as well. Wait a minute, what the fuck? He just admits it. He just admits that he has a head. Never mind. You know what? This game gets a 0 out of 10. I do not tolerate liars. That goes for David Cage, that goes for Peter Molyneux, and that goes for Headless Harn. The gameplay is actually really easy to get into. You just jump around on different platforms and spam special moves. It's actually a ton of fun. It is a quick paced, and most of those moves are easy to learn, making it great for a party atmosphere. I don't know if you noticed, but the soundtrack to this game really bumps. It mixes this kind of rhythmic tribal drumming and pan flute and synthesizers. This song in particular is my get hype song. This is the song that plays before every fight, and it just gets you really pumped up for the battle to come. In fact, this song replaces my old get hype song, Sarah McLachlan's In the Arms of an Angel.
So congratulations, Naxat Soft. After stumbling out of the block with Killing Zone, you got your shit together and you made a spiritual successor that's actually a ton of fun. Oh, wait a minute. This game came first. Killing Zone is the sequel. This isn't a redemption story. This is a story about you fucking up and dropping the ball. damn it. There goes like my positive ending for this episode.
So why was Battle Monsters forgotten?
Well, put simply, this is the type of game that one can only really love in hindsight. Holy shit, did I just paraphrase Pagan Min? What is wrong with me?
In the 90s, people thought goofy gimmicks like the Dungeon of Doom and WCW would be the death of pro wrestling, but now we have countless podcasts and websites dedicated to talking about this. This is a shout out for my pal Jay, by the way. You as a child would have been crestfallen if you rented Troll 2 expecting it to be as good as The Gate. And if you bought a copy of Battle Monsters while your friends were playing Mortal Kombat, they'd probably think you were an idiot.
Like with many kitschy, campy things, Battle Monsters seemed lame when it came out, but now we find it endearingly goofy. A certain amount of time has to pass before we can find ironic enjoyment in the tragically ludicrous or the ludicrously tragic. With its odd sense of style, bad character costumes, downright terrible blue screen keying effects, and a soundtrack that for some reason or another is full of bops, Battle Monsters was just too weird to live. Just like me.
Chris, wait! What about my segment?
Oh, that's right. Game Ghoul has a segment they want to do in every episode. Go right ahead, Game Ghoul.
No! You have to do the intro! You gotta intro me!
Okay, it's time for Game Ghoul's grab bag of good games featuring the Game Ghoul. It's Halloween. Do you have any actual scary games people can play? Like something with a dark tone and a lot of atmosphere? You know, let's get some genuine screams on Halloween.
Super Baby shoots the bad guys!
Come again?
Super Baby shoots the bad guys for the Nintendo Game Groove.
This is your pick for a scary game with a lot of atmosphere and a dark tone.
Guns are scary, and Super Baby's got a gun, and bad guys are scary, and Super Baby, he takes his gun, and he shoots the bad guys, and he puts them in a cage, and he saves the bank!
Is this a real game?
Yeah.
Can we see some footage of it?
No. My camera's broken.
You can count on me. No matter what you do, you can count on me. No matter where you go.
Okay, here are the real credits. I gotta be quick because I've been up for 27 hours editing and I'm about to fall over. Big shout out to Zora for the illustrations in the beginning. Go follow her on Twitter. She does great monster artwork and she posts all the time. Big shout out to Ryan Probert for the amazing theme song that he was able to do. I can't wait to work with you in the future. If there's public interest in this show. My mom, thank you so much for making the puppets. Without her, none of this is possible. I'm all thumbs. And honestly, Game Ghoul, some of her best work. Shout out to Melody, my sibling, for helping me run the channel. Shout out to Jay Hunter from OSW for always having my back and believing me. Shout out to everyone in the Patreon, patreon.com/ReloadLastSave. The people who joined the Discord through Patreon. I bounce ideas off of them, I show them sneak peeks, and, we just have fun having movie nights and playing games and shit. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.